So, I wanted to talk about this today because I think it's something that's not really spoken about that often, ironically, and it's something that I struggle with a lot sometimes and that I have struggled with in the past. And I just want to share my own experiences about it in the hope that it might reach someone and help someone else that's going through this. I'm going to be talking about finding your voice today, using your voice, feeling safe enough and confident enough to speak and use your voice and be open, stuff like that. So I was thinking about this the other day when I was putting notes for this video, and I was like, it's so weird and strange to me that for some reason there's this universal collective experience of hearing a recording of your own voice back to you and feeling completely disgusted by what you hear, and then feeling even more disgusted when your friends or whoever's with you is like, no babe, that's how you sound, don't worry, that's actually how you sound. And you just feeling what? And I obviously had an idea of why this was, and I googled it, and I didn't really go into too much research about this, but it's basically, obviously we're hearing our voice back to us by just what's carried by the sound waves, and not through bone or muscle and tissue and all of that. It's not going through our body, we're hearing it just on its own, naked kind of. I'm not a scientist or anything, so don't research it yourself if you're that interested in it. But yeah, it's a pretty common experience that we all hate recordings of ourselves, which is fine, right? I remember being completely shocked because I was listening to a Q&A sort of episode of the Magnus Archives, which, if you don't know what the Magnus Archives is, it is this amazing podcast. It's this audio drama kind of thing. It's horror. It's quite Lovecraftian in certain episodes. Each episode is basically this scary story, but then there's this overarching plot line as well. So yeah, it's really cool. If you haven't listened to it, it's been out for quite a few years, so you probably know about it already. But I was listening to one of a Q&A video in between seasons or whatever, and it was basically, the session was with Jonathan Sims, the writer of the Magnus Archives, but he also plays and is the voice actor for the character Jonathan Sims. And I forget who the other person was, I'm so sorry. I think his name was Alexandra or something, but I can't remember his last name. But Jonathan was basically talking about how he doesn't really listen back to the episodes himself because he hates listening to his own voice on recording, and he was basically talking about oh, everyone can kind of get this. I don't like listening to myself back on recording, and yeah, I don't really listen to many of the episodes for that reason. And it just hit me how weirdly universal that experience is, and how totally weird our reaction and our kind of insecurity is to that, because his voice is pretty iconic to the Magnus Archives. I mean, he's basically in every episode. Everyone loves it. It's the character, it's so expressive, it's so immersive, it helps create the world and the stories and brings them to life, but also brings this character and the different layers of the character to life. And yeah, it just hit home to me how sort of weird this collective experience is for all of us. That even these amazing people that we really look up to, and we recognize their voice, and it's an amazing voice, but the owner of the voice is oh no, I can't listen to my voice back. Yeah, that was a side note, but I think it's pretty much safe to say that everyone or most people go through somewhat of a dislike or a discomfort upon hearing their own voice back to them, which is completely okay. It doesn't really get into, it doesn't really get in the way of everyday life or how we live our lives. But what I wanted to talk about today is what happens when, the disliking of our own voice goes a bit deeper, mentally and emotionally, and how that can affect us. I'm not an expert on this. This is just my own experiences. And again, I hope by sharing them, I can help you in some way, even just to acknowledge and process the experiences that you have gone through and make them valid and like worthy of like, actually, yeah, I did experience that, and actually, yeah, it did get to me a bit, and it has affected me in this way, in terms of like how you view your own voice and your self-expression and communication. So from a very young age, I was called shy and quiet, which, looking back on old photos, it's kind of weird. I was looking back at old photos recently because of Mother's Day, and I wanted to like put together a little like photo book for my mum. But I was looking at old photos of me, and I was like, I was such like a happy, confident kid who like posed a lot, loved the camera, like wanted lots of photos, wanted to, get attention, whatever. But then I was also kind of from a very young age referred to as shy and quiet, which kind of like confused me for a bit, because I was like, wow, I acted so differently at home, I guess, to like how I reacted to like strangers, like my mum's friends, my dad's friends, or like going to preschool and school. Like I hated going to school. I hated being away from my mum. I was so shy. I was so quiet. But I think there was a certain point where I was referred to being shy and quiet so much that I took that on as part of my identity, and I didn't think that I could shift it. I thought, oh, that's just me now. Like, that's just who I am. I can't be loud because, I'm the quiet one. I was also one of those people at school, especially primary school, would always get the report that said is a delight to teach but could speak up more, which again is really funny now that we have social media and a lot of people post these TikToks, and I'm like, wow, it's so funny that teachers like all around use that phrase, and it like got. And even in the moment of like receiving these reports year after year and being like, is that really all I bring to the table? And I'm not shaming or blaming teachers. I think 9 times out of 10, teachers are amazing. They're there because they really are passionate about teaching these children and helping them on their way and on their life path. And I think teachers are amazing and brilliant. And if you're a teacher, I love you. But I think in terms of school, in education, it's very one size fits all. And I think there doesn't seem to be much effort and attention going into like these more quiet, reserved kids that maybe don't speak up a bit more. And I think there's not much being done about like, okay, why did these kids not want to speak? Why did these children feel that they're not safe enough to speak out in front of the whole class or whatever? Sometimes it's not that deep. I'm naturally a very chill, reserved person, but I think sometimes like the anxiety I got from like class discussions and being picked on was like not okay and not normal. And I think I just needed like more sort of like, I needed a teacher to just be like, are you okay? Like, what's happening inside your head when I call a class discussion? And I think from a very early age, I just kind of took that on as like, I don't want to be seen or looked at, which is why those class discussions gave me so much anxiety. But I think as well, from a very early age, I had this sort of idea about my identity and how like I was not very smart or bright, and therefore I shouldn't be allowed to speak, or if I was going to speak or try and give an answer to the class, that I was going to get laughed at or be told off for getting it wrong or for being stupid. I wasn't very, I don't know how you would phrase it, like academically bright in the way of like, I have never been good at science and I've never been good at maths. I appreciate these subjects for what they are. I think every subject is beautiful and helps us understand the world and, is worth teaching. But again, education is very one size fits all. And if it's not going in, it's just not going in. Like I love science for what it is, and I just found it amazing that there was sort of like an answer for everything, and everything just sort of like fit in, and like there was just like this beautiful explanation for anything, but I couldn't remember it and I couldn't really get my head around it. And I think, yeah, from a very early age, I just kind of got this idea that like I wasn't very smart. I remember in primary school, I had to be taken out of my regular class for English and be put in like this special literacy group. And I was the only one in my class that had this. And we had to be taught by this like teaching assistant in like this one room, I guess. And there was like these couple of other students from like other years and other classes. And she had to teach us using these like really like long books with like this giant print of like the words in really big font, and she used a like toy frog to sound out the words and the letters and all of that. And I just remember being in these classes thinking like, well, like, why do I need this? Why am I being treated? I mean, I was a child at the time, but I was, I was 9, 10, 11. I was like, why am I being taught by this, excuse my language, fucking toy frog? Like, I don't know, I feel like I've always been quite mature in terms of like emotionally, but again, academically, maybe I wasn't. But I remember sitting there thinking, am I really this stupid that I need to be taught, sounding out these like, 4 5 letter words with this toy frog? Like, what am I doing here? Why is nobody else in my class here? Does everyone think that I'm stupid? I think as well, my sister was always very good at science and maths, and she was always put in like, I don't know how to describe it. I don't really know what they were because I was never a part of them. But like those special groups that you went in if you got like, I don't know, I guess if you got like better grades than everyone else or something, then you was considered like part of like the special group that like went off on like these trips or like went off and did special things that like no other student did, which is great because I'm like, I see that you see something amazing in that child and like you want to hone in on that and like nurture it even more, which is amazing. But it kind of felt a bit shit from, other children's perspectives and my perspectives, because I was like, oh, well, are we not worthy of that? Or are we not worthy of maybe more nurturing? But it's very like tricky. Obviously, time is split between all these children, so it's very hard to do. And also, even though my sister was younger than me, teachers wouldn't really know my name that often because I was so quiet, I guess. And some teachers used to like mistakenly call me by my sister's name and kind of not even look at me, just like glance at me, be like, oh, hi, my sister's name. And like it would become like a joke, like me and my friends would laugh about it or whatever. But it did get to me at one point because you kind of have that moment where you're like, am I so stupid and so quiet that like no one even bothers to want to notice me? And it was only until year 6, so my final year of primary school, I was probably like 11, I guess. I can't even remember, sorry, but yeah, I was 11 years old and my teacher was like, hey, I'm gonna test you for dyslexia. And guess what? This girlie is dyslexic. I think as well that was a big part of like a sigh of relief of like, oh. And I had my own thoughts about my identity and what that made me like and all of that and everything like that, which I have since changed, and I've since been like, oh, it just means like I'm more imaginative and, I'm maybe really slow at reading, but that's fine. And I feel like with everything, it's a skill that you just need to work on. And like back then, again, I didn't read too much. So again, that was like another part of me that was like, oh, I'm stupid because I don't read, because I don't want to read because I'm just such a slow reader, and therefore I can't speak because I'm stupid and I'm going to say something to embarrass myself. And yeah, so that was all going inside my head, like, I'm stupid, I'm dumb, people just think I'm shy and quiet, so I should just be shy and quiet. And then moving into secondary school was a very big knock to my confidence, to be honest with you. So I was already kind of the quiet one. I didn't like a lot of noise. I didn't, and I still don't, being around a lot of people. You also then have to deal with like classes and exams, which again wasn't thriving in. You also have to deal with like hormones and puberty and appearances and mental health, which I think were all really big factors again, which knocked my confidence and affected how I saw myself, but also how I expressed myself, or how I stopped expressing myself, and how I told myself I'm not worthy of using my voice and I should just be silent and not talk. So I'm going to get into slightly more detail about each of these. Again, these are purely just my experiences, purely to just maybe you can relate or you can resonate or you can make sense of some of your past experiences. I'm not going to go too in depth, don't worry, I don't want to trigger anyone, and it's really not that deep. So yeah, main factors. First of all, like I've said before, I didn't shine in science and maths. And those two, along with English, were very big. Like, those are the big three, obviously. They are very important subjects, and again, I appreciate them, and I'm grateful that I went to school and had an education and learned all about them. But science and maths, again, just did not click with me, and so I felt very stupid when, everyone else around me was getting it and understanding it, and exams were coming up and all of that, and I just felt so silly and stupid for not understanding these subjects. English, I was good at English. I think I've always been good at English, just in the way that I'm quite imaginative. I've always loved writing. I've now got 2 degrees in creative writing. I've always been good at like the essay side. English as well, just because it's very much BS it, but back it up with quotations. So like, oh, she's feeling depressed because the curtains are blue. Stupid stuff like that we all take the piss out of, but you know what I mean. So I had been good at English, but I just didn't have the greatest confidence in myself when it came to like my intelligence and stuff like that. So I just didn't feel comfortable or confident speaking in class, because I just had this idea that I was stupid, and I had this idea that everything that came out of my mouth was going to be dumb and stupid and embarrassing, and also as well just like disappointing. And I thought that, again, like it was naughty or like misbehaving to get stuff wrong. And a lot of the time, like if people did get stuff wrong, teachers would just like look at them really disappointedly, and I didn't want to disappoint anyone, and I didn't want to feel small. So again, I just didn't feel good in that department. In terms of puberty as well, like, and hormones, like your appearance changes, you may get acne or issues with your skin, your body is like changing as well. My body image was not the best at that time, my self-confidence was not the best at that time. I didn't want to be perceived and noticed, and so I thought the best way to not draw attention to myself was to just be quiet and not speak. So again, like I did stop myself from speaking out a lot of the times and just speaking and expressing myself because I did not want to draw attention to myself, because I thought I wasn't worthy of being seen. Just as well, like things happened at home sometimes that just made me want to just keep out of the way and be quiet. I wasn't, and I'm still not, the loudest person, and I take a while to warm up to people. Now I'm much more confident in speaking. I'm still not as confident as I would like to be, but I'm way better than what I was. But I have always been quite chill and quite stubborn in the fact that I won't speak over you and I won't shout to get my point across. If you speak or shout over me, fine. I'm not going to waste my energy on trying to speak to someone that clearly does not want to hear me. But that can be frustrating sometimes when everyone around you is like that. And a lot of the time, like my friendship groups, especially in school, I was friends with a lot of loud people, which is fine. I'm not shaming people for being loud people. Like I love loud people, especially when they're funny or like, honest, brutal, like whatever. I love them. But it can be hard sometimes when you're like constantly being talked over. And again, sometimes maybe it was on purpose, sometimes it was just an honest accident and mistake, and they clearly didn't mean to talk over me, but it still affected me in a negative way, obviously. So yeah, there were often a lot of times where I just thought my opinion wasn't valued and wasn't cared about, to the point where I would just often just give up, and I would just think, well, I'm not even going to try because I'm just going to get spoken over. And again, it was mostly just mistaken. Like I've got quite a light voice, which I've always had quite a quiet voice, to the point where like when I was little, people would laugh at me because I was so quiet, which again was probably not great for my confidence and my voice. But also just as I got older and I would kind of maybe mention it sometimes, like, oh, I was trying to speak then, or like you spoke over me or whatever, or just not being rude, but just trying to gently say to someone like, hey, I know you maybe didn't mean to, but you did speak over me and I was trying to say something. And I would often get met with like very angry or like passive aggressive responses of, well, like, speak up then, you're so quiet, or like, oh, be louder next time. And first of all, why are you being angry at me? I've just politely told you that you spoke over me. And two, it was very clear that they didn't mean it and they didn't want to hear me, even when I had just pointed out, hey, I'm trying to speak. Because if they really wanted to hear me, they could have just, again, politely said back, "Oh, I'm so sorry, like, you're just sometimes you're just a bit quiet and it's hard for me to hear. But what were you going to say?" Or like, "Oh, say it now. Like, I'm sorry. I'll be quiet so you can say your piece." But I never had that. I was never met with that. I was never met with the willingness to be, "Oh, I hear you. I'm so sorry, but it was an accident. But okay, floor's yours now. What do you want to say?" It was always just very angrily, "We'll speak up then." And then they would carry on their conversation, or the conversation would move on. And yeah, it was just very clear that even though they had acknowledged what I had said, they still didn't really want to hear me, which obviously, yeah, was not great. And also, just in secondary school, like I've mentioned before, my mental health wasn't amazing in school or in college, really. And there were multiple times where I did confide in adults wanting help and just coming to them really scared and really anxious about their reactions, but doing it anyway and speaking out anyway, because I really did believe that I wanted to, like, get help for myself and talk to someone. And, I had hope that they would listen to me and help me. And 9 times out of 10, I again got met with just these adults that just like did not have the response that I needed in that moment. They often got angry with me, or they got frustrated. They didn't really understand. Again, I got the impression that they didn't really want to understand. They didn't really give me much time to explain myself, or they didn't really put much effort into understanding, which I understand that adults have their own life and adults are going through their own stuff, and we can only ever do the best with what we've got in that moment. But if you're put in a place of trust and position and power over children, or if you're put in a place of care of children, there is still something that you need to do for that child when they come to you. So I understand both sides, but yeah, there was just a lot of times where I was struggling mentally and I opened up to people and friends too, and just never got the support or validation that I needed to, I guess. Which again gave me the message of sort of like, well, your feelings don't matter. You're not really going through that much. Like, you should just shut up and get on with it because everyone else is. So, you're being really bad and really horrible by sharing your shit because, nobody cares. And actually, it's just making them more stressed. So you should suffer in silence. That's basically what it said to me at the time. So yeah, all of these issues kind of built up, and moving into my adult life. So I was 18, getting out of college, I guess, sort of just were bubbling up. And so I'm 18, it's 2020, sorry to trigger some people. So it's after summer, and obviously, so like I've had to finish college early, which by the time of this, I was in my last year of college. I was just like starting to think about my finishing project and stuff like that. I was really enjoying college at the time. I had come to terms with the fact that I was struggling with anxiety, but I now understood what it was. I had a name for it. Again, I thought I was just shy. Turns out I had anxiety. But I was getting to the point where I knew how to handle it and I understood it. COVID happened, everything got locked down, and I'm not complaining about this, by the way. Like, nothing happened to me and my family. We were completely safe. And I know that a lot of lives were affected a lot more negatively than mine, so this isn't like a complaint or anything like that. I'm just explaining the situation. So, yeah, everything got locked down. The summer I turned 18, it was just like nothing happened. I wasn't used to like going out. I've never really liked going out or drinking or anything like that. Again, not to shame those who do. I just don't. So I didn't really have much communication with my friends for the whole of summer, which was fine. Again, I was safe. My family was safe. There are bigger problems to worry about. But going into university was kind of really scary, and it was made scarier by COVID because our classes were obviously split up and stuff, and some were online and some weren't, and everything was closed down. I had a lot of trouble making friends. I didn't make friends until like right at the end of my first semester, and then by my second semester everything was completely online again. I just stayed home. So I was basically trapped, not really speaking to anyone by the time I had moved out and gone to uni. I really struggled with being away from home because I had no one to talk to. And yeah, so with all of these thoughts and these insecurities surrounding my voice bubbling up and then just not having anywhere to voice them or be heard kind of just became my identity and my thoughts about myself, and I started to believe them. And like everything, if you don't use your voice, that part of yourself like really suffers, right? Like it's like a muscle. If you don't work on it and use it a lot and, practice or whatever, it just goes away. So I found that I was just even more like I would stumble on my words, I would stutter a lot, I would be even more quiet than I used to be. I was even more secure about my voice because of these added things. I found a lot that I couldn't get my point across easily. I didn't know how to verbally communicate my thoughts or my feelings, or my ideas, which was really frustrating. And again, as well, if you don't have that person or that safe space to kind of practice on or give you that patience to stumble and trip up and stutter and just take time to think, okay, what do I actually want to say? Then it can just really have a horrible effect on you. So I couldn't communicate well or efficiently at all. I was just not confident in myself, and I just didn't want to speak at all ever again. I was like, I can just live my whole life being quiet and never speaking. And, I'm basically doing it right now and nobody's really noticing. Like, nobody's really bothering to talk to me. Nobody's really like asking me how I am or like really listening to me. So like I can just go my whole life like this and it'll be fine. But deep down, I was like in so much pain and hurt, and I really did want to speak out and use my voice. So I'm 22 now, and it's taken me a while to actually face the problem and acknowledge what I've been through and acknowledge that it's not right and that I should be able to feel safe and use my voice if I so choose to do, and to realise that actually this isn't normal what I'm feeling and I need to make changes and I want to make changes towards feeling better in my own voice and more confident using it as well. So I'm going to now give you sort of like a rough timeline of what kind of helped me, kind of like small turning points from what I can remember that helped me with my voice and using my voice and encouraged me to hone that skill and encouraged me and said to me that actually you do have things to say that are important and they should be heard and you should be listened to, like everyone should be. The first thing I want to mention is drama in secondary school. I love drama, the subject, not like gossip. It was like one of the only subjects that I was really, really good at. I was good at English because I could BS and just make up stuff, and I was really good at telling stories, and I was good at drama, and I loved drama, and I enjoyed it, and it gave me so much joy, and really helped me hone the craft of not only acting, but like my voice, using my voice, projecting my voice, being expressive and immersive and creating this world and this character through my voice. And I understood how my voice was powerful and how much weight it carried and what I could do with my voice. It gave me just so much more confidence in just myself in general. I could do something, and I could do it well. I got to go on stage as well, which was something that I thought I would never be able to do. And I did it. I did the big, scary thing. And I'm just so thankful to the subject and the teachers that just saw me and helped me and gave me love and confidence and just helped me feel safe and gave me a safe place to have fun and be myself. Also, as well, when you get older and you get to like choose your subjects and stuff, I chose film studies as well, which again was like another subject that I absolutely adored. Again, I had amazing teachers in film studies. Again, it was like my own thing and I was actually good at it and I loved it. It gave me so much confidence in myself because I was like, oh, I am smart and I can know stuff. I'm just smart in different subjects and that's okay. We all have our different stuff that we're good at and that's great. Like there are different types of intelligence and that's amazing. And I even like spoke up more in class and just having confidence that actually what I was going to say was valid and important and worthy to be heard. And I had so much confidence. So my next one is university, and I know I said that it was pretty horrible in my first year, which it was, but like drama and film studies, going to university again gave me that safe space to feel valid and feel like what I was good at was valid. obviously taking a subject like creative writing and other people around you who have chosen to do that subject and lecturers who love that subject and write for a living, you're gonna feel validated and you're gonna feel good and you're gonna feel like, actually, wow, like what I'm interested in and what I want to do with my life matters and does give something to society. But yeah, I actually started to find my voice again, and I found some of my people and actually felt like creativity and what I brought to the table was worth something, and I was somewhat good at academia and writing and just starting therapy, having someone holding space for me and actually just speaking out loud my thoughts about myself and my mental health and what I'm going through, and being listened and not judged or not ignored or not put down, just being actually heard and feeling like what I was feeling mattered. If you're ready and if you can, counselling and therapy is a great way to just sort of learn that you're important and learn that your feelings and your emotions matter and learn that you can be vulnerable with people and they will respond in a way that is helpful and healing for you. It shouldn't be judged or put down for being too small or too big. Starting this podcast video thing has been helping me. Again, like I said, I believe like everything else, our voice is like a muscle, and if we don't use it, we will lose it. So this is my practice. You don't have to do this. You can record diary entries to yourself and then delete them or whatever. Or you can read out loud, you can print off scripts or plays and read those out loud. Just speaking by yourself and creating and being that safe space for yourself and, quote practicing can really help and has really helped me. And also just using my voice brings me a lot of joy. I've realised, like, I always, again, part of everyone calling me shy and quiet, I always just thought like, oh yeah, I don't like to speak. And like I said, yeah, I am kind of chill with the way that I use my voice. I'm not the loudest person in the room. I'm not so fussed. If you want to talk over me, that's fine. But actually I do have a lot to say, and I am a bit of a yapper sometimes, and I love to yap and I love to speak and I love to use my voice, especially when trying to give advice or just sharing my experiences to help people. And that is one of the biggest things I want to do with this. I know right now, as I'm recording, nobody listens to these things. I get like no views of my videos, but I still do it because it just brings me joy. It is my practice. It is helping me use my voice in a safe space. I am my own safe space, and I hope one day people will listen to these and get some sort of healing or just reassurance and comfort from these things, because that's what I want to do. I want to use my voice to help others and heal others, or help them on the way to heal themselves rather. I think as well with like me editing this, I know I'm hearing this back to myself and like completely hating my voice, but then like also recognizing and remembering that everyone hates their recorded voice back to them. A lot of the time when I'm editing, I will like notice like how many times I say like, or how many times I say or how many times I pause, or can't get my thoughts together or can't think of the words. I can often pick out like the things that I've said wrong or how I've done something wrong, and I think we just need to give ourselves that grace and that love to actually be like, actually, that's okay that I made a mistake. It's okay that I did that thing wrong, because I'm taking action and steps to move past this and get better. And I can't be perfect first time, and I can't be perfect every time, and that's okay. Also, just meditations and affirmations, just telling yourself, even if you don't believe it, my voice is worthy, I am worthy of being listened to, I am safe when I use my voice, nothing's going to happen to me when I use my voice. Even if we don't believe that, just like setting up those thought patterns, it will eventually ingrain into your brain and you will eventually believe it. And meditations as well, like guided meditations, sort of similar to affirmations. Just hearing someone say to me, your voice is worthy, and like repeating these affirmations back to myself and just holding space for myself to feel calm and at peace and focusing on that aspect of myself. I know that there are like energy points and chakra points that I honestly don't know if I do believe in them fully, but I think just as like a visual guide, it can be really helpful to focus on like chakra points to like what you want to pay attention to in yourself. For me, sometimes before I film these, I will listen to like a throat chakra meditation, guided meditation, just because visually it will help me like focus more on the energy and the point of what I want to improve on, I guess. And it will just make me feel safe as well. sometimes when I record a video, I will feel really insecure about my voice. Like every time before I start filming without fail, I just feel so like, oh, I don't want to speak. Like I'm going to make a noise. Even when I literally make sure that everyone is out and I'm home alone, I'm still like, oh, I'm going to make a noise and I can't make a noise. So I have to listen or like do this meditation to feel safe and to feel comforted and to feel like actually I can use my voice, nothing bad is going to happen and I am okay. And voice messages as well. This sounds so dumb and silly because I feel like everyone sends voice messages now. But there was a time, that was like honestly the longest time I refused to send voice messages because I was like, I hate my voice. I'm gonna mess up or stumble or stutter or get things wrong. My voice recorded sounds awful, even though it sounds the same to everyone else, and I'm just hearing it back in a different way. But still, I can't send voice messages because it's just so embarrassing, and I don't want to speak, and I don't want people to overhear me speaking. And yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Once I started, and this sounds again so silly because everyone sends voice messages, and you're probably listening to this like, what is the big deal? But the first time I sent a voice message, I had to hype myself up so much. Now I'm addicted to them. I love sending voice messages, and again, it's part of my practice. In conclusion, I am still not where I want to be with my voice. I know I'm going to listen to this back and think, oh my gosh, I sound awful and I've made so many mistakes and I'm speaking too slowly or too fast, or my voice sounds too high or too deep or whatever. But what matters is that I'm taking steps towards where I want to be and what I want to feel. And I'm so proud of myself for that. And I think you should be proud of yourself too. No matter where you are on this journey, I am proud of you and you should be proud of yourself. I hope that you take away from this video is just comfort and healing, and I hope that I have somehow helped you acknowledge and validate and process your experiences. I hope that I've helped you acknowledge that you are worthy of using your voice, loving ourselves, loving others, or at least respecting others. I think that's what's important, and remember that you can just practice using your voice by yourself. You can also journal and write things down, like if you don't want to use your voice yet or you're too nervous about whatever, you can always journal as well. Like writing things down is so valid and it helps so much. Healing is non-linear. You're going to get good days, you're going to get bad days. That's okay. It doesn't mean you're going backwards. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you've lost it forever. It just means that you had a bad day because you're human and we're allowed to have bad days, I promise you. I will let you go now and talk to you next time.